All right, y'all. So I got this hard text from somebody yesterday, and she was pretty much saying that I know you got 4 kids or whatever, but you got to do better when it comes to finding time to hang out with people. So I debated all night last night. Like, I was literally up all night last night thinking about whether or not I was going to share my response to this person and what I said. And I feel like I got confirmation from the Lord that what I text her, like, y'all need to hear. And I got confirmation through something I read. Like, the Lord was like, pretty much, I see you. And I know that was a hard text. So I'm going to share it with y'all because I feel like some of y'all, like, it'll help free you up like it did me. Okay. So let me pull it up. It's the longest text of all time. So just hang in there. And then I'm going to tell you what God had told me through that text. I put no offense taken. Okay, so I have never really verbalized this nor said it over text. It's just something I have finally come to peace with and dealt with God. So I'm going to try to communicate it with as much grace as possible. At the beginning of the year, I thought being intentional about friendships was something I should put on my goal list for the year, but I quickly realized it was coming from a place of guilt and it wasn't a true goal for me. This season of life I am in is not something that can be understood by many, if not any. What God is doing in my life professionally, in my family, in the life of our church demands my full commitment and focus. My schedule and mind are full from the time I wake up around 4:45 a.m. to the time I go to sleep. I rarely get to connect with even my best friends. We literally have to put something on the calendar just to get on the phone. And don't get me started about date nights. It's something we're willing to sacrifice in this season. All of this was something I used to feel guilty about and made me wonder if I was going to look up in 10 years and there will be no one around me, until God freed me from this in the beginning of the year. The call on my life is different. It's not that I think I'm better than anyone else. I think the assignment might just be weightier, if that makes sense. So I'll live my life very differently. Almost every minute of my time and energy is budgeted. While I love people, the way I do it in this season is different. I prioritize my faith, my husband, my 4 kids, and the call on my life in the local church. Everything else fits in where it can. It's an intense life, but it's how I have chosen to live mine. And greater than that is the way I feel God has called me to live it. So I know it's a super intense response. I love that God has put it on your heart to cultivate meaningful relationships. And because of that, I had to be honest of where I am at and let you know that I am not in that season because I do value you and don't want you wasting your time with me and being hurt that the same energy is not being reciprocated. I love you and I hope you hear my heart. I'm going to read what I read in this book that showed me that this is a word for somebody. But first, in case you have to run, I feel like there are people who God is calling you to an intense level of focus, almost like a divine discipline in this season, but you're too afraid to lean into it because you're afraid of what other people are going to say. You're afraid you're going to lose something, or you feel weird because you think people don't get it. And like, this is something that God is even redeeming in my life this year. But like, if you read a book, I wrote a book and there's a section on focus, and I was almost embarrassed to write this book, but there's certain things that just the way my mind is wired and the way I work, like I don't take phone calls randomly throughout the day. Like even my sweet husband, if he called me at the wrong time, he may not get an answer, right? I only respond to text messages in blocks of time. And so that may be like early in the morning when I wake up. If I didn't get them the night before, I try to do them at night after I put the kids down to bed. But I say all that to say, I'm just different. And let me read this book to you, because even though I'm wired that way, it still hurts when you have to have these hard conversations. Okay, so I'm reading this book called When in the Dark, right? And I was sitting at the DMV trying to get my tags to my car, and I opened this book to read this, right? And it says, what are you passionate enough about that you can endure the most disagreeable aspects of the work? And then it goes down. Let me read this other line to you. If you want to be a head coach, which is cool, because if you know what my husband does, he's a coach, right? But aren't willing to handle the loneliness of knowing someone is always disappointed with your decisions, then your career would be short-lived. If you want to be an artist but aren't willing to get criticized by lots of anonymous people, you're done before you start. If you want to be a CEO but don't accept the responsibility of having everybody's expectations on your shoulders, you won't last. If you want to be elite at your craft but aren't willing to handle the exhaustion and sacrifice that goes along with the full schedule, then you will never reach your dreams. If you want to be a parent but aren't willing to endure sleepless nights and a squashed social life for the first years, then you're in for a lot of suffering. I love when we do a hard thing and the Holy Spirit comes right behind us and like gives us confirmation that we're headed in the right direction. And so pretty much what this video is about, when I want to give you permission to do, is like, I'm done apologizing for the fact, like how I live my life. I'm done apologizing for the level of intensity it takes for us to parent our 4 kids the way we feel God is calling us to parent them, for the way we have to put our schedule so that my husband can walk in his calling and I can walk in my calling, but our kids don't get left on the side. Because we've always said we won't have ministry or coaching orphans, right? So we over here doing our thing, but our kids get the burnt end of the stick. And so a lot of the times when we work on our thing, that's in the dark. That's why I love this book. It's in the morning hours or the nighttime hours, okay? So I do not have the extra capacity to be going to brunch. And I am not going to apologize for that anymore. And it's not to say that we don't find the time to spend time with people that we love. It just is within what it is that God is calling us to do. They're in the same spaces. And so that lie that the enemy tried to give me, that, oh my gosh, Della, if you keep going on this trail, you're going to look up in 10 years and you're going to look side to side and nobody's going to be there. That's a lie from the enemy, because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to have my head down. I'm going to be laser focused on what God's called me to do. And in 10 years, shoot, maybe 20, I don't know how long it's going to take. When I look up side to side, the same people who had their head down were doing what God called them to do, or maybe we were on the same mission together. We locked arms. I'm going to look up. They're going to be next to me. And so that was a fear. I gave it back to the devil, and I want to give you permission to give yours back to the devil. And when I talk about the call on our lives, I'm not talking about in an arrogant way. There are certain things that God has called us to do that if we do not do them in this season, if we do not do them the way that he's asking us to do, some people will be without. Example, we are currently in the process of putting together the money to build this like tiny home RV park. If we don't do that, somebody will literally be homeless, right? We're getting the farm going, all these different things so that people can eat. And, that's just one example. But if we're not walking in obedience, if we're too worried about telling somebody we don't have time to do something, we're not going to be able to do that, right? And so we still do life with people, especially like when we were young adult pastors. I would tell them, hey, you know what? I can't meet you for cookies, but I'm cooking dinner. You can come over here in my dirty house and we can talk while I'm preparing dinner for my children. And obviously there's things like, honoring your parents. My parents, they can move within, out of these rules. I make time for them. Shoot, we make time for Myra's parents. Myra has grandparents that we need to spend time with. So there is just no extra time for me to be feeling guilty or bad about the fact that I do not sit around on the phone. I just don't do these things. And I'm just freeing myself from that. And if you're like, I don't even have a big call in my life, but I'm just overwhelmed by what it takes to life right now, I want to free you up to just feel free to give all of your capacity to what's right in front of you. Like, that's okay to say, all I have to give is for what's right in front of me. God honors that. He honors you being faithful to that. And so I am sorry. And this is no shade to her. I'm glad she's one of the, I have respect for her because she's one of the people that's bold enough to tell me what a lot of people maybe think or have experienced in being in relationship with me. And so I've just come to peace with it. And what it does is it holds me to a higher level of accountability, because I'm like, now I got to be about it, because I'm literally drawing a line in the sand. And so I want to give you the same freedom to draw a line in the sand. If this is your season to walk in divine discipline and God is calling you to stay focused, be unapologetic about it. I love y'all.